Okay, good. How you doing, little daughters? How are you? Good, good. Okay, you guys all set? Let me know when you're ready.
All set, G.
You good?
All set.
Yes, we just had a disturbing series of events. A little bit after 2 o'clock, we had a male in his early 30s who was shot in the area of Morton and Pearl. It appeared to be some sort of chase between that person and another person. There was a crash, and that person was shot multiple times in the torso area. Uh, right now, that person sustained some serious wounds and is in very serious condition at this point. And then about half hour later, we had an incident in this area, in First and Quail area, where individuals in a vehicle were driving down Quail northbound and started shooting in a southerly direction. While doing that, shooting indiscriminately, they shot an elderly female who was in a vehicle in this area. She sustained a gunshot wound to the neck area. She's in serious condition at this point, and we're awaiting an update on that condition. So obviously, very, very unsettling and very serious issues that we're dealing with. Again, as I've said before, just an outrageous acts of violence that we're seeing. We have a very good idea of who these individuals are involved. We know that this involves groups of individuals who know each other. We're fairly certain that these individuals are carrying out retaliation for other things. We have some very good intelligence. We have some the evidence right now is very good that we've obtained, and we're very, very confident that we're going to identify these individuals involved, and we'll bring these individuals to justice. And additionally, I've reached out to the state police as well as the Albany County Sheriff's Office, and we've received commitments for additional resources from those agencies to help us out at this moment in time. I've also received a call, and I've had conversations with the district attorney's office about some additional resources from that office as well. We're in close contact with our law enforcement partners at the federal level, and we're also working very closely with other local law enforcement agencies who may be experiencing similar incidents. So, collaborative effort. We have a lot of partnerships that we'll be working on right now. We have an idea of what's happening. We have a very, very good idea of who's involved. We'll bring these individuals to justice.
Chief, were any people involved, were they involved in prior shootings, do you know?
And we haven't made that determination yet.
Gang related?
And we don't know, but we certainly know that these are groups of individuals who know each other. And we can call it whatever we want, but the fact of the matter is that these are individuals who know each other. And we're fairly confident about that.
Was this woman hit with the stray bullet you sent?
Correct. Yes, this woman that was shot was an innocent bystander, and she was in her vehicle and was struck. She was not involved.
What's her condition?
Right now, serious condition, and we're awaiting an update on her condition.
And the other one is critical condition?
And the other one is in serious condition also. We haven't gotten an update on that person's condition either.
How can bringing in other resources help this problem? Where does this problem sit? What is the core issue here?
Well, the core issue is we have groups of young men who are involved in some underlying feud that we're attempting to find out what it is, but these young men are attempting to harm each other, and they're determined to harm each other. And so these additional resources can assist us with having more officers in our areas, more police presence. They can team up with some of our officers to give us more police presence in our areas. They can allow us to free up some officers who would ordinarily be doing administrative work to handle some of the more immediate things as well.
What does more police presence look like? Does that mean 2 cars going down the street, people walking the blocks? What does that mean?
And it can mean a variety of that. We can have more foot patrols. We can have more marked patrol vehicles in areas where we've seen an increase in activity. So it helps us with response times. It helps us in terms of deterring activity, and it also sends a message to the community in terms of helping them to feel a little safer and more secure with the additional presence.
And when do you expect that to start?
We're hoping that this starts immediately.
Chief, what do you say to the individual who, people like the individual who just walked by, and the comments that we've heard just say, interrupting the press conference saying that you don't care, those sorts of comments? Obviously at a time where we've had so many of these shootings that everyone's on high emotions right now.
Well, it's a very emotional time for everybody. And when you have the amount of violence that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, I mean, it's extremely emotional. And it's an extremely emotional time for police officers. It's an extremely emotional time for me. When we know that we're deploying our officers, we're engaging with our community, we're investigating these crimes, we're identifying who's involved, and yet we're seeing some of these things persist. It's a very frustrating and emotional time for us. But we know that this is something that will not last. We know we have a very, very good idea of who is involved. We have an idea of how the conditions that allowed some of this to happen. And a lot of this was no fault of anybody. We're going through the COVID-19 pandemic where we had fewer police contacts, we had fewer police patrols, simply because it was not safe to do. And it created this void where we had these individuals, these groups of individuals who had these underlying feuds, and they see some opportunities to continue these feuds. And we saw this spike right at the outset of COVID, when we started having the stay at home and fewer police contacts and social distancing. It was a very clear spike at that time. And we started seeing volumes of shell casings at some of our shootings that we hadn't seen before. And it was clear to us that a lot of this was because they felt emboldened, because there was fewer police on the street, fewer police contacts. We had fewer interventions for almost 3 months. And they seized those opportunities. And now we're seeing the aftermath of that. Now we're seeing the retaliation for those shootings that we saw spike dramatically right at the end of March going into April, and leading up to the period that we're in right now. And so, yes, it's frustrating. It's frustrating because the conditions that led to this were out of our control. I think it's important for the community to know, when we're looking at this issue, during the year of 2018, we had this very concerning spike in violence. We saw spikes in homicide and other violent crimes. And we put some things together where we were engaging with our community. We had strategies that were put in place. And look at our statistics for 2019. Dramatically down. And across the board. Fewer shootings, fewer homicides, fewer violent crimes. And as we started 2020, we were continuing with that trend. And then we had this unforeseen natural event that happened that shook everybody. Shook law enforcement, it shook the entire country, indeed, and it shook the world. And we all had to adjust to this. And we had to adjust our law enforcement strategies and our law enforcement practices. And because of that, it allowed some individuals to take advantage of some opportunities to get vengeance for some past grievances that they had with other people.
For people watching tonight who are innocent bystanders like the woman that we had here, what do you have to say to them so that they're not afraid to walk out in their own community?
Well, my message that I've been consistently saying is that we're working very, very hard to identify who these individuals are. The threat of arrest in prosecution and jail time is a very, very powerful deterrent. And I've been saying that consistently to the members of this community. We haven't necessarily had that for 3 months simply because it wasn't safe for officers to interact in a way that we had before. We're out now. We figured out a way to interact and intervene and re-engage in terms of law enforcement practices and community policing like we had before. And so we will figure out this problem. This will subside. My message to the community is to stay with us, to continue working with us. We understand the community's fear and frustration and their pain. It's important for them to know that we're feeling that same fear, frustration, and pain. You know, these conditions that led to this were unforeseen, and it's none of our faults. We've made some adjustments. We can safely come out and engage in these practices that were so successful for us in the past. My message to the community is we'll figure this out. We'll bring these individuals that are committing these atrocious crimes in our community to justice.
At that first scene, when you say chase, was the truck and van involved that chase when they crashed, or were they just driving through and they heard the shots and just were?
The van, the U-Haul van that crashed into the pole was involved. There was another vehicle that was involved with that, not the van that's there, but another vehicle. And those two vehicles were involved, we think, in some sort of chase that ended up at that location.
So right now, do you have anybody in custody for any of this?
Right now, we don't have anybody in custody. However, we have some very good leads. We have some very good intelligence. We have some very good information. And we're working very, very closely with our partners in other places and exchanging information. We're very, very confident we're going to find out who's involved in this.
So with that information too, can you, like, if you see this thing escalating further down the road, can you talk to those people that might be escalating it later? You know what I'm saying? Is there a web that you can go to?
I'm not understanding the question.
You're saying that these two people there's a feud, and then they retaliate. So there's got to be another outside web of this, of these people that you can talk to try to stop them, right? Is that part of your strategy?
Absolutely. And we have what we call violence interrupters. And that's what their role is, to find out who some of the associates are of both victims and suspects, and to try to prevent any further retaliation. So, and that's another thing. We were not able to do that for almost 3 months. I mean, that's a critical piece of resolving these sorts of incidents, because retaliation oftentimes is done by those who are associated with either victims or suspects. We haven't had those contacts for 3 months. And so now we're just now re-engaging in that piece. And so there's been this gap that has really impacted operations in terms of addressing some of these things. We've re-engaged. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
How many shootings are we at right now?
Right now and over the last 2 weeks.
Individual shootings?
Yes, individual people shot. We've had over 20 shot over the last 2 weeks.
All right, thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
If y'all did, it would be stuff for us to do. I need to suck Greg Apple's dick.